Okay, welcome back to the edition of the behind the scenes of the time-lapse videos of the Backpacker Coach. So I'm going to be going over quite a few different things in this video. So let's get started. So the first part was the objective, what I wanted to do. I wanted to do kind of two things. One, I wanted to hike a 14er at night. And the other objective was I wanted to get a time-lapse video of kind of the shadow moving across the mountains. So that was my second objective. So that was the two things I wanted to do. If you didn't know, I've got a couple stats I can throw up. And then the next thing is the plan of what we were going to plan to do. So the plan was to leave at about 12:30 a.m. in the morning and get there about an hour and a half, and then start hiking right away, and then get up to the top before sunrise, and then kind of watch the sunrise and take pictures and get down in the morning still. So anyway, I'll start off with our trip. So we did start out at 12:30, and we got up there about 1:30, close to 1:30, maybe a little bit later, and it was about 40 degrees when we stepped out of the car. Show you the picture of that. That's us. It was rather dark at 12:40 or so at night. And so we got it all suited up and headed out. And so we were moving along quite fast for the first 2 miles. The GPS said we had gone 1.9 miles in like 50 minutes. So we were moving really, I thought, pretty quickly those first 2 miles. So as we were moving up, we got to about that 2-mile mark, and we could see the moon off to the right. It was very, very orange because there was a band of smoke from all the fires, and we actually watched that set, and then it got even a little bit darker because then there was no moon at all. And so after that, we had met a couple other people, a group of a couple ladies and a group of a couple guys that were also going up, and we passed them, and I don't know if we actually ever saw them again, if they made it to the top or not, because they were really slow coming up. But anyway, so we continued on the trail till we got to about 13,000 feet, and that's where it kind of gets interesting. Up to that point it's pretty easy to follow the trail. We just had our headlamps and we walked up the trail. It was pretty simple. But then when you get to near the top, where there's this little tiny flat section, and you go across where you just kind of follow the rock cairns, which are little stacks of rock. That part wasn't too bad. We just walked across that. But then you get to pretty much the last little section of the 14er, and that part proved to be a lot more difficult to find the trail or to follow the trail. So we pretty much scrambled over the large rocks, trying to find whatever we could of the trail, finding it and losing it, finding it, losing it. I knew that the trail went off to the left of the mountain and kind of went up, so we were essentially just doing that, following the kind of to the left of the mountain, and we'd catch the trail, then lose the trail, catch the trail. But we knew as long as we were staying to the left and kind of continue to go to the top, we would get there. And we did. We made it to the very top, and it was very clear, other than there was a small band, like I was saying, of smoke that was kind of low to the mountains, but above all that, the sky was completely clear. You could see all the stars. That was a beautiful night. It was pretty cool on top. Was probably somewhere in the 30s. It was a little windy, not extremely windy, but it was windy, you know, it was cool. And so I had my two friends with me, and we sat on top for a little while, and I was trying to take a few pictures, and then they decided that they were getting a little too cold. So they decided to head down, and then I was pretty much left on top by myself. Okay, I wanted to go over with you what I had taken, or what I wore when I was on the top of the 14er. Like I was saying before, you know, the other two guys that I were with, they kind of got cold, and they decided to head down. So to be a little, you know, where it's not quite so cold. So I wanted to show you guys what I was wearing to stay warm, or at least, you know, somewhat comfortable while I was up on top. So we'll start with the top, and so I had my synthetic polyester t-shirt. That was first. Then I had my Patagonia synthetic long sleeve shirt. See that? Then I had my fleece jacket that I use. I still really like this one. And then I have my down vest that I have. And then over all that, I put my my light rain jacket. That's this one only weighs about a pound. So I put that over all that. So then we'll do the bottom. So I had my long underwear on, my 100% polyester pants, for this trip I decided to bring along fleece pants that I have. These were kind of a pain in the butt to get over the boots because they're very difficult to, they don't have like a zipper on the bottom of the, so I had to struggle quite a bit to get those on. But anyway, I got this on, and then I put my rain pants over that. And that is what I wore up on top. And then I also had hat and gloves and my boots that are 200 grams of thinsulate, which always helps out in cold weather. So that's about it. That's how I was able to stay up there, you know, at least for a couple hours and not freeze to death while I was up on top. It worked pretty well. I definitely know that a lot of people that were up there probably were not prepared to be up there for a long period of time in the cold weather, because people just don't think about how cold it's going to be. It's like we did it at the end of summer, and when you're on top of a 14er, it is pretty much like winter. So people have to, they just don't realize what the difference is, and that's why if you get injured and you have to stay up on top or close to on top of a 14er and you're not prepared for something like that, you're going to be really cold. So that's why it's really important to stay, you know, to have enough gear along to stay warm if you get hurt. Otherwise, you're going to be darn cold. Anyway, that's about it. Let's see. So I was on top, and I decided that we were up there around 3 o'clock in the morning. which was very early, and we knew we had at least a couple hours until sun would start to come up. So I decided to try to take the first part of the time lapse that you saw of the cars and the people coming up the mountain in the dark. And so I set up on my camera and decided I would take that time lapse first, knowing that it would be at least 5 o'clock before I would even start to be able to see the sun. So if you look at that first time lapse, there are some neat things about the time lapse that I just wanted to explain to you about, so you knew what's what. If you look first at the first little squiggle part, that's the cars that are coming into our parking lot. That's the part of the road. Okay, so you have then you have the parking lot that's off just to the left of that, and that's where that fills up very quickly. And then you can see down to the bottom of the screen, the little tiny lights, those are all the people that are coming up the trail. So now here's some cool stuff that you may have not noticed. If you look back, you see that mountain with the two humps. That's Grays and Tories right there. So if you look kind of right in the middle of those two little humps, you see a little tiny white dot, and that's somebody climbing up Grays and Tories at the same time that I was up there. So you know that there were other people climbing up Grays and Tories at the same time that we were on Bierstadt, which is kind of cool. So and then if you also notice, you look above Grays and Tories, you can see that's the Milky Way, which is kind of a cool neat thing. You can see that running across the sky. So some of the things that I had issues with on this trip was my time lapse, my metering device that I use. It was not working properly, and so I had set it to do like 300 or 400 pictures, and then another 400 pictures, and somehow I only got 148 pictures out of all that. So it somehow shut off early, didn't work right. So I definitely need to think about getting a new one of those, because it's very cheap, and it doesn't work very well. It shuts off, it kind of has a mind of its own. And so I definitely want to get something better at some time down the road, and hopefully something that can actually do some holy grail stuff, where it'll actually calculate some of the shots for me, so you don't have to touch the camera. So anyway, I was up there till 5 o'clock, and the sun did start to come up, and I'll show you a picture there. That's a picture as the sun was coming up. There was another guy that was up on top at the same time as I was. And I noticed that because of that cloud band of smoke that was in the air, that it was kind of stopping the sun from really being very strong, and so I wasn't going to get any pictures of what I wanted. So I decided, well, I guess I'll get off the top and I'll start heading down, and then see if anything else happens down a little bit later. So I got off the top, came down, back down, which was nice to be able to follow the trail actually all the way down. It was much easier going down. And as I was just coming off the top, probably 100 yards, maybe 200 yards down, I noticed that the sun was definitely doing what I wanted it to finally do, and so I jumped off the trail, kind of hopped down into a little rock crater, and I took the other sequence of shots that you saw of the other time lapse of the shadows moving across the mountains. So I got that done, and then I hiked down to the bottom. It was pretty much a constant flow of people going up as I was coming down. You couldn't, pretty much sneeze without, seeing somebody like every 5 seconds. You're pretty much saying, hello, good morning, all the way down to the very bottom. I think I got down to the bottom somewhere around 9:30, maybe 10, somewhere in there. And then we headed back home, and then I slept for a long time because I hadn't slept at all. So that's about it.